With Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum being ruled out for the rest of the season, it kind of just makes us start thinking about possible, the future with Zion Williamson and the Pelicans and if he's going to stay there next season, because that's a real concern. What is up, y'all, and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about Zion Williamson like I just said in the intro. So make sure you guys like the video, subscribe, do that stuff. We're trying to grow every single day, and I appreciate all your comments down below because I like reading it, whether it's hate or, whether it's like positivity. I like reading it because it gives me more ball knowledge, right? So it helps me explain. I like talking to y'all too in the comments. So yeah, keep that up. And let's get into the video now. So about a week or two ago, I got a tweet from Legion Hoops saying several teams are expected to make a run after Zion Williamson in the summer. And this is per ESPN. So, ESPN, very credible source there. And I thought this was actually very interesting because, the Pelicans are not doing too well. Zion Williamson, when he was playing, did actually play some good basketball. And it feels like, if he's going to be, this Zion Williamson that we saw this season, it doesn't really make sense for him to be on a team like the Pelicans because they just don't seem like they're really focused on him. They don't really seem like they're built properly around him. I feel like if he goes to a new team, he could really maximize his potential there. And obviously it's Zion Williamson. We're talking about a guy who does not play, who is not on the court a lot, a guy who doesn't play back-to-backs. It seems like, you want to see him play. You want to root for him to be on a good team that can make a playoff run. However, he's just never available. And maybe that changes with a new team. Who knows? I remember seeing a while back, I don't really have the sources for this, but I remember like an interview saying that the Pelicans will not let him play back-to-back. So maybe it's not really his decision and why he's not playing as much games. And I feel like, they shut him down for injury, but I feel like, they shut him down to tank more, maybe get a better draft pick. And I feel like, with their record this season not being too well, that playing Zion Williamson will basically hurt their draft pick chances. So maybe that's why they shut him down, because they also shut down CJ McCollum, who's another veteran guy who has been playing pretty solid this year and has actually helped them win some games. So, maybe they're just trying to get a better draft pick, and maybe that's them saying, it's time to move on from these guys. Because we saw Brandon Ingram get traded, and CJ McCollum's probably next, and then maybe it's Zion Williamson, like that tweet said. Or maybe it's Zion first, then CJ, because Zion's probably going to be a little bit easier to move, I would think, because he's a star player. But at the same time, he's injured, so it could be hard for him to move because, the Pelicans are going to want a good return for him, and I feel like teams might not want to take that risk. But at the same time, I feel like he might be easier to move than a old CJ McCollum. And looking at a little timeline from Zion Williamson for his last 4 seasons or so with the Pelicans, he signed a 5-year, $197 million contract, which is a lot of money back then, and it still is now, but for NBA terms, that's the max contract you can get. And then he played 29 games the season after, played 70 games, and then he's played hardly any games this season, a whopping 30, right? So, that contract hasn't really aged well. I mean, he had a good 70-game season last year, but he got hurt, and it kind of just went down from there. So it's just kind of been unfortunate because Zion Williamson is a crazy talent, and I liked him as a player. I wish I could see him play more. However, it's not his fault that he's getting injured, because it looks like he's at his best shape he's ever been. I mean, this season, it seemed like he was his lowest weight he's ever been, and it's kind of just been unlucky for him, and I kind of feel bad. Especially because, like I just said before, his weight's down. It looks like he's actually trying, and, he's just getting unlucky. But I feel like more in this case, he did get shut down than actually being injured, but, who really knows? It's really up to the front office. And I do think from the Pelicans' point of view, tanking is the best option because Trey Murphy's out for the season. CJ McCollum, has been dealing with some injuries, but it kind of does make sense if you want to get a better draft pick. There's nothing really to play for the Pelicans, so I guess it does kind of make sense there. But, for Zion's career and worth point of view, it's not the best scenario for him, right? And an interesting tweet from Matt, or 6 Rings of Steel, you probably know him on YouTube. He said, games played since 2023, Zion Williamson with 129, Brandon Ingram with 127, Morant with 114, and LaMelo Ball with 105. I know he's not really in great competition here because all these guys are kind of injury-prone type of players, but, it just kind of sheds light that he is getting so much hate for not being in the court, but there's other guys who've actually played less games than him, so, I don't really see that talked about a lot. But let's talk about teams Zion Williamson could go to, because I've heard a lot of teams. I don't really have specific odds or anything like I normally do in these videos, so it's just going to be me kind of just talking out of my mind. And, I heard the Warriors. I'm a Warriors fan, so I'm not going to be biased here, but I did hear that, and I don't really know how they're going to get that done. Maybe a sign and trade with Kuminga somehow? I don't really know how the Warriors would do that. They'd have to give up a lot of draft picks too, so it's going to be, a perfect case scenario for the Warriors to get Zion, in my opinion, but I don't think it's going to happen, even though I would like to see it happen. Other teams that he could go to, I'm actually going to look back at a tweet from NBA Central from before the trade deadline in November, and this is not really up to date, but, it's just something to keep in mind, to keep my mind fresh. We had the Lakers, which, I don't really see how that works out now because this is before the Luka Doncic trade, so I'm going to scratch that. We have the Rockets, which I actually could see because the Rockets have a lot of assets. you'd probably have to give up Bari Smith or Tari Eason for that trade. And if you can keep Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, and those guys, I mean, that could be a cool little asset for them. So the Rockets aren't bad. The Clippers do kind of make sense too in a sense. I mean, they don't really have like a superstar because they have Harden, who's been playing good in an all-star level. They have Powell, who's played an all-star level. Zubac, all-star level. I guess Kawhi, I don't know what I'm saying. Kawhi's a superstar. But, you know, I feel like if you get Zion on that team, that could be a cool little asset, but I don't really know what they would trade for him. But, I mean, that would be cool to see if they could figure it out. We also have the Knicks, which I don't really understand either. We have the Hawks, which could be interesting. I don't really know what they give up. I feel like the Nets are in a lot of trade talks, and I don't think the Nets should do anything. I think the Nets should just start building from the draft, because I feel like the Nets always get greedy, trade for these superstar type of guys, and then they just don't work out. And I feel like Zion could easily not work out in Brooklyn. I feel like they could trade all their assets for him. You know, he doesn't work out, he gets injured, he doesn't play, and then they just ruin their draft capital for the future again. So I don't want the Nets to do it. I feel like the Nets could actually do it, but I just don't think they should, and I don't want them to, because I want to see them actually draft and, you know, build up from the draft for once, right? So, you know, they are an option. And then there's a couple other teams, the Grizzlies and the Bulls. The Grizzlies are just having a lot of drama going on over there right now. They just fired their coach. John Morant's getting shots taken at him by some other GMs. I'm not going to really get into that. But then the Bulls, we have, you know, that could make sense, but I feel like the Bulls, same boat as the Nets. They don't really need to trade for a superstar. I feel like they should just build from the draft, build with the young core that they have. You know, Kobe White's been hooping, and Josh Giddey's been really hooping since the trade deadline. So I feel like they should just work with what they got there. And honestly, you know, out of all these teams, it's probably the Rockets. And I feel like the Rockets are always the top trade destination for all these superstar players because they have all these assets that they could trade for him. So, you know, the Rockets could be a not bad shout. A team that I was also thinking off the top of my head was the Pistons. Maybe the Pistons or the Rockets. Those two teams would be cool for me to see. But, you know, yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about Zion being traded somewhere and where you think he should go. Because there's a lot of teams he could go to be honest. Because, you know, Zion Williamson is not an old player. He has his prime left. He just needs to stay in the court. So there could be a bunch of teams. And then another thing I saw from Stephen A. Smith that was kind of big was he said the word bust comes to mind when I think of Zion Williamson, and honestly, I do not agree with him at all. I feel like Zion Williamson has shown that he can be a superstar in this league. He's shown that. He's proved it. He's averaged 27 on a season. You know, he's carried his team to the 1 seed when he was healthy, because he did do that last season. If you guys do not forget, he was carrying the Pelicans to the 1 seed when he was playing in the beginning of the year, and it just kind of didn't pan out because he got hurt. So, you know, Zion Williamson is capable of doing these things. He just needs to figure out the injury situation. It sucks, man. But if he can figure that out, maybe it can work for him. So I do not think he's a bust. I think it's too early to say that too. He's still pretty young. I mean, he's still mid-20s, so he has a lot of time to have it work out. And, you know, I guess we'll just have to see from there. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. Like the video, subscribe to that stuff. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about Zion Williamson, because he's kind of a controversial topic here, because there's a lot of people who hate him and there's a lot of people who like him. I'm personally one of the people who like him, but, you know, people have their own opinions. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about Zion Williamson. Like the video, do that stuff, and now we're out.